Tell me your dreams over bacon and eggs. We'll share a laugh and a story and even a wish on the breakfast dish. Bop, 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 bop.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to episode 0 of The Breakfast Dish. I'm joined, of course, by Karen Johnson-Diamond. Karen, how are you?
I'm very morning-like. How are you?
Very morning-like, meaning tired. Have you done your vocal warm-ups for our new podcast?
I have not, and you'd think we would, but next time maybe.
We are classically trained, but it doesn't matter. The intro song that you just heard was by the lovely Alexandra Cowman.
I love Alexandra Cowman. I first saw her in Spitfire Grill at Rosebud Theatre. She rocks my world. I almost got to do a show with her before everything shut down.
Ah, yes. So, just to give you a little bit of background information on what we are trying to do here, why don't you... So, of course, the breakfast dish has been made possible by the Rozsa Foundation, the Calgary Arts Development Authority, and the Calgary Foundation with development from Verb Theatre's Blue Light Festival. But all of it has taken inspiration from your Facebook series called The Breakfast Series. So,
yes, it did.
I guess in the spirit of episode 0, before we start bringing in our guests, and we do plan to have a guest of almost every episode, if not every episode, give us a background information on the birth. I was going to say the birth and death, but that's not true. The birth of the Breakfast Series.
The birth of the Breakfast Series. Okay, 10 years ago. It's February. I hate winter. My friend Trevor calls and says we should play Scrabble. He insists that we do it in person at a cafe. It was the best morning I'd had in months. It made me get out of bed in winter. Have I mentioned I hate winter?
I think so.
And the next day I had to have a meeting with someone, and I went, you know what? We're going to go for breakfast. We're going to go to a cafe. We're just going to sit in the morning and talk. And I did that 3 days in a row. And you know what they say, do something 3 times and you're addicted or something, or it becomes a habit. And it was absolutely a habit.
Wait a minute. You become addicted to something after 3 times?
I think a habit. I think it becomes a habit after 3 times.
See.
Like if you smoke 3 days in a row, it'll become a habit. However, I have exercised 3 days in a row and not found myself habitual.
Yeah, and you're on what, like 3 packs a day now?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm a killer smoker.
Nice. That's acting training right there. Sorry, please continue.
That's my vocal warm-up.
Oh, no.
Anyway, so 647 breakfasts later, that's what's happened with the Breakfast Series. The not death, but the comatose version of the Breakfast Series has happened because of the shutdown of everything, COVID-19. But, and I should also point out that I have not had breakfast with 647 other different people. Sometimes I repeat people because I work with some people that I have to see twice in a morning, which is great. I've probably played Scrabble with Trevor Lee 9 times in that 647. You yourself have been my guest in the Breakfast Series a number of times, sitting on the roof of your house in Edmonton.
That's right. Good old Blue Nose. Now, is 647, is that a made-up number, or do you actually have that as fact?
I have to go back and look at Facebook, but I'm pretty sure it's 647.
Listen, I didn't want to do this on air, but this is the kind of research we need to do before we start the Breakfast Dish. I need to know the exact number of the Breakfast Series that you've done.
Well, would you like me to look on Facebook right now while the world is listening to episode 0? Would you like me to pause?
No, you're probably good.
Done?
We spent so long trying to figure out how to record. I'm currently sitting in your walk-in closet surrounded by Father's 7 housecoats.
Yeah, and I'm sitting on the bedroom floor surrounded by an eggshell mattress.
Right. I guess we should probably preface this. So I'm Griffin Cork.
I'm Karen Johnson-Diamond, also known as Karen Cork.
That's right. So for those of you who don't know us, if at any point anybody who doesn't know us takes the time to listen to The Breakfast Dish, we are a mother and son combo, which I think is part of the charm of why we get to make The Breakfast Dish, why it's become possible. And right. So since
we should clarify, I'm the mother, you're the son.
I'm glad. Yeah. It's hard to tell over the syntax of a podcast.
It is.
So then, moving on from the breakfast series, the Verb Theatre social media festival, Blue Light Festival is what it was called, which was planned before the whole pandemic, before COVID-19, before everything. They had this idea to make a festival about theatre happening on any kind of social media. So that could include Facebook or Instagram or WhatsApp or multiple platforms, fake websites, fake blogs. And because I was supposed to do a show with Verb in May, we were approached to see if we wanted to do something for the Blue Light Festival. So we adapted this to the Blue Light Breakfast series, in which we talked to all the artists in the festival about who they are, the work that they're doing, but most importantly, because the whole world has taken this transition to going online, rather quickly to watch their performances, how to best experience their project or their piece or their show.
And by how to best experience, you mean tell Karen how to use Instagram.
Sure. Karen and also everyone else in the world who doesn't know how to use Instagram because it's never been as part of as necessary in viewing theater.
I was happy this morning to watch an interview online with a Stratford actor, so young, so hip, had only joined Instagram yesterday, so I felt ahead of the woke curve. I don't know if having Instagram makes you woke.
I guess it depends how you use it. I thought you were going to say, this morning I was happy, but now it's gone downhill. So obviously a large thank you to Verb Theatre for letting us kind of develop this idea. And now we are transferring it rather than just to the Blue Light Festival artists to now more of a city or provincial or countricial or national
or universal.
Oh boy, that's the kind of comedy you can come to expect from the Breakfast Dish. So we're taking that on kind of a broader scale, and that working with the Rozsa Foundation and the Calgary Arts Development Authority and the Calgary Foundation, we'll be talking to pretty much all of the creators, or as many as we can get our microphony hands on, in terms of interviewing them about the work that they're doing and kind of trying to spotlight on all of the possible places to watch online performance, but also in how to best experience those and to learn about the people behind them.
Mostly that. Mostly, what is your favorite breakfast cereal? What did you have breakfast with? Who did you have breakfast with this morning? What did you eat for breakfast? If you were a breakfast cereal, what breakfast cereal would you be? Where do you normally eat your breakfast? Do you even eat breakfast? Do you believe that breakfast is the most important meal of the day?
Right. So when we were doing the Blue Light Breakfast series with Verb, we were doing it on video. We were doing it live on Zoom, which eventually turned into a broadcast to Facebook. So we could have food going, which, of course, when we're dealing with an audio medium, it's much more sloshy if we started eating our omelets right in front of these lovely microphones.
It would sound like we're speaking moistly.
That's right, and no one wants that. So,
no, unless you do. Dear listeners, please send us an email at thebreakfastdish@gmail.com and tell us if you'd like to hear me slurping my oatmeal during the interviews.
Oh, God, okay, I think we got to get into some deep web territory here. I think we need to back up.
Why, did I say the email wrong?
No, the email is great. It's the whole idea of someone asking you to slurp oatmeal into a microphone that I'm sure somebody on the internet will find terribly fascinating.
There's some fetish site for that somewhere, I'm sure.
This is not a conversation that I thought I would be having with my mother on the Breakfast
Let's
Dish.
not talk about fetish.
It's too late.
Between
it's in.
Mother
I'm
and
not.
son.
I'm not editing it.
It's in. Stephen, edit that out.
We don't have a Stephen. My question for you is how do you think we can best bring in the idea of eating breakfast into this podcast? Like, obviously, breakfast for you is kind of about conversation and, again, like the meeting people, showcasing people, togetherness. Is there an element of, I guess, the food and that kind of sensory overload that you think we can provide in this podcast?
Well, what about if I was asking you, Griffin, if you were in a restaurant with me right now, what would be the first thing you'd want to order off a breakfast menu? Do you have a go-to thing, or do you like to try something different every time, or does it depend on the restaurant you're in?
It really does depend on the restaurant, depending on what kind of food they serve. Like what I order at, IHOP will be different than what I order at Diner Deluxe. If I know the place, I usually have a thing that I like. And sometimes I'll try
Diner
it, but
Deluxe.
sometimes that's right.
I just want to go to Diner Deluxe now.
Right. So this episode has been brought to you by Diner Deluxe. That's not true. However, if they want to sponsor us, please reach out. Anyways,
Please.
I've really been partial to omelets recently in terms of.
Okay.
I'm a big cheese guy, so a lot of big cheesy omelets. I used to go waffles or pancakes, as I think every kid did, no matter what breakfast spot. But obviously, that just makes me sleepy nowadays.
You get that from your father, the big cheese part.
Yeah. But also there was those old commercials. Do you remember those? I think
You mean
it was,
the Kraft singles?
No, it was Dairyland or something, or maybe some health thing of Alberta. But
yeah,
it was
Dairyland,
like
maybe.
a 35-year-old dude eating, a mom and his 35-year-old son eating at the kitchen table, and then another mom would like walk by the window, and she'd go, "If you want him to move out, stop cooking with cheese." Do you remember that?
Yes.
Oh man, those were genius commercials.
Oh my gosh, I remember watching them and going, thank God it's a long time until my son moves out. I remember thinking, there's going to be a time when my son will move out, and how can I keep him?
That's right, and soon you'll be the other mom walking by the window yelling at moms about cheese.
Wait. Had I cooked with more cheese, would you have stayed living with me?
This is not the kind of conversation
No,
we should be
come
having
on.
on the podcast.
What are my favorite foods? What are your favorite foods? Spaghetti and meatballs, if I just kept cooking that. Let's get real here. Every time I cook, the smoke alarm goes off. So you are healthier, eating healthier in your own place, truthfully.
Well, maybe. Yeah, we'll see how that goes. Father's coming over tonight for chicken and cider, so...
Oh, if I'm alone at home, then I'm just going to eat cheese for supper.
No, you're not. You're going to eat cream of wheat.
Yeah. So that's the other thing. Let me ask you this. Is breakfast a supper food? Yes or no?
Yes, absolutely. I think...
Absolutely.
I mean, that's the whole other series of commercials going around right now is...
Eggs aren't just for mornings.
Yeah. Don't eat eggs for lunch. You're weird. I'm not weird. You're weird. Your girlfriend looks like mom. And then they have that commercial where the girlfriend and the mom look very similar.
I don't watch enough TV.
You haven't seen that one?
I don't watch enough things with commercials.
Fair enough, absolutely. Yeah, who does? So I guess my question for you is, what are you looking forward to? What were the more like spiritual, internal aspects of the breakfast series that you hope you can transfer to the breakfast dish? I know you kind of touched on it, but like let's get into the meat and potatoes and omelets of it.
Spiritual. Every time I sat down at Diner Deluxe and had that oatmeal lemon curd bliss, I felt as though I was in heaven. So that was a spiritual moment for me. But
It's pretty good.
what I got the most out of it is face-to-face conversation. And I know that sounds, everybody talks about that all the time. We're too attached to our media, blah, blah, blah. I'm completely addicted to my media because I used it 3 days in a row. Anyway, I'm obsessed with media. I love that we have social media and phones, et cetera, et cetera. But there is just something different about sitting down face to face with someone and talking and asking the weirdest questions, or not the weirdest questions. Sometimes I'd be having breakfast with them because we had a meeting, or sometimes I'd be having breakfast with them because they happened to be in town. But a couple of times I went, oh, who's that young person that I just worked that one day with on that one workshop? They were cool. I would like to sit down and learn more about them over breakfast. And for me to learn more about them, but also for other people to learn more about them, because social media is so great for that, for saying, hey, I need a French-speaking 6'5", dark-haired woman with one arm. And
What are 3 other things about it?
her toes are webbed. She has those earrings that are gigantic hoops in her earlobes, and she has a deviated septum. So they asked for that specifically, and I don't actually know someone like that, but
I was really hoping you were going to say somebody's name, and like if you said, yeah, and so I recommended Mark Bellamy. And
you know what though? Mark Bellamy could pull it off. Mark Bellamy could convince
right.
us that he was a 6'4" lady with one arm. Either way, it was my opportunity to hear somebody say, well, I actually am also a fight director, and me going, what? have you done fight directing in Calgary? No, I haven't. So then I could go on social media and go, hey, everybody who's also looking for a fight director or a stage manager or someone who speaks French or someone who has 7 dogs, whatever. Just introduce them to the world. That's it. And I know the world is my 1,400 friends on Facebook, but sometimes if you set your settings just right, friends of friends see the things you post on Facebook. I learned that.
Right. So how the Breakfast Dish is helping you grow as an artist is you're becoming a Facebook wizard.
Is it ever? You know what? I feel ahead of the curve on the fact that on Facebook, I learned a long time ago that up in the right-hand corner of a post, you can drop down the arrow and put save post or save video instead of reposting it with the phrase saving for later, saving to watch later. I feel so advanced that I don't do that.
Right. It's kind of like bookmarking a post.
Yeah. It's. I just like to stick a bookmark in it myself.
Now, okay, so now this is a question that we didn't actually talk about, but I'm going to put you on the spot here.
Great, thanks.
Great, yep, absolutely. We've talked about like some potential guests we want to tap. Who are your top 3 ideal guests to have on the Breakfast Dish? So hopefully we can like come back and listen to this in, I don't know, 2 years when we're making lots of Squarespace and Quip and Casper ad money.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of all the podcast ads. NatureBox. I guess that's
Food
it.
service, make your own supper out of a box.
Oh yeah.
Those
that's right.
guys. Yeah.
Blue Apron. So hopefully we can come back and listen and go, hey, we completed all these goals. I'll start. I have one.
Okay.
I know that when we get really high profile, I think we should try and talk to John Krasinski from Some Good News.
Good News.
Now, I know that he sold Some Good News, but I think the origin of Some Good News is still, rests in John's hands. And not John Hamm, John's hands. So that's...
You bear a resemblance to John Krasinski. So if we can't actually get him...
So incorrect.
No, if you watch Jack Ryan, he sometimes has some very, some Griffinisms. And you have some John Krasinski.
I'm more of the Office John Krasinski rather than I am the cool action hero Jack Ryan John Krasinski.
You're definitely more of the Office than the action hero. However, if we can't get him, I'll just interview you and we'll just pretend you are him. But we can
ask Mark Bellamy.
Yes. But he has to take one arm off.
That's right. And it still has to wear the hoop earrings.
I wasn't aiming as high as you. My gosh. Oh, someone has...
Well, I figure we could work our way down in terms of star status.
Okay. Well, guess who my number 1 star is I'd want to interview. Guess. Tell the
Neil
world.
Diamond.
Yes, Neil Diamond, yes. However...
Now, again, some people don't actually know us if we reach a broader audience than we're thinking, so you should get into that.
Okay, but if I do, I'm setting a precedent for mentioning Neil Diamond in every single episode of The Breakfast Dish.
I have a feeling you'd do that anyway.
You're right, I would. Neil Diamond is my hero. I love him. I changed my name because of him, and no, he's not cheesy. Okay, so I would like to interview Neil Diamond, but bringing it a little bit closer to home, I would love to interview Nick Green at the Social Distancing Festival. And also, since you bear a likeness to Krasinski, you have also played a character, the young version of a character that Nick Green played once. So all of these circles are connecting.
That's
small,
right.
small world.
So Nick Green is 1 degree separation from fake Krasinski. That'll get him on the show for sure.
Yeah. Okay. So I would really like to talk to Nick Green. I'd also I like to talk to some kids that are just getting into it, just getting into theater, because chances are they're the ones that have dived online already. I would like to speak to the inventors of Instagram and Twitter so they can tell me what I'm doing wrong.
I have to say that might be a higher goal than John Krasinski.
Really?
Talk to you about what you're doing wrong.
But maybe that's
we haven't
the thing.
made clear about what the podcast is for.
It's about digital entertainment. People that are doing things online. They're showing us their dance performances online. We get a chance to see their visual art online. I did that for 2 hours yesterday. I just searched Canadian artists and found amazing paintings and sketches that I never would have known about if I hadn't just taken the 2 hours to do it. So if there was a podcast by any chance that would have interviewed this one painter, Sean Skier, if there was a podcast that would have told me all about Sean Skier, I would have known about him a lot sooner than I did. So if it's a social media, if we're talking about people that are doing online entertainment, then talking to those people from Instagram and Twitter, let's tell them what they need to do better to make it easier for us. Is that too far?
I don't think so. I mean, we're kind of trudging on the same topic, the fact that like the National Arts Centre and Facebook have released that whole series, Canada Performs, which is probably something that's on my list. Is I would like to talk to somebody at the National Arts Centre about how the hell they made a deal with Facebook. That's so cool.
I bet you can do that. I bet that is an easy get.
It's possible.
You're pretty charming. Yeah, you're pretty charming.
Well,
you could charm
if I tell them
into
I'm John Krasinski, I'm even that more charming. Luckily
Tell them you're
we don't
Mark
have to
Bellamy.
be we don't have to be on video, so I can say whatever I want.
Yeah, you can.
Yeah, so definitely the National Arts Centre, but even if we're looking at even more focused, I think talking to Daryl at the Citadel or Stafford at Theatre Calgary about both Citadel Stuck at Home series and Theatre Calgary's TC Takeout would be a very cool initiative. Is in terms of like our hometowns, our home provinces, two largest theatre companies, how they are kind of leading the charge on, or are one of the pioneers in terms of figuring out Albertan digital online content. In terms of those powerhouses that were very present in live theater, yeah, that's something that really interests me, is the transition from something so like structured and in person as regional theater to move online. That's something that interests me.
Yeah, and I've done a lot of watching plays out of London or out of Toronto that at one point were filmed for video, but they were still a staged performance, and that's been fantastic. But there are people out there that are making the art for the small screen to be viewed online. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah,
and there might be Canadian performances that were filmed while they were being presented on stage in such a way, and I just don't know about it. And luckily, I have a podcast now in which I can seek that out and hear about the ones I'm missing.
That's right. And speaking about who we're going to be talking to, obviously, if you're listening to The Breakfast Dish, and if you're still listening, you'll know that this has been made possible by the Rozsa Foundation, the Calgary Arts Development Authority, and the Calgary Foundation. So we will also be talking, what the Rozsa Foundation has right now for Alberta artists is the Rozsa Foundation has an excellent archive, like a growing list of everything that is available to watch online, or digital creators or people who are making digital content. So we'll also be...
classes you can take. What do you mean if you're still listening? Why wouldn't people still be listening? You're John Krasinski.
Well, that's the thing. Maybe it's... I mean, I can't think of a single person who doesn't like John Krasinski, but since we revealed that I think we've said a couple times that I am the fake Krasinski, I don't know if that'll hold up in court.
I think that might be something we have to consider as an alternative name for this podcast, or that name that drops below in parentheses. So The Breakfast Dish with the fake Krasinski.
With Karen Johnson-Diamond and Faux Zinski.
There are a million things that are happening online. There really are. So I just can't wait to watch them, experience them, listen to them, read them, but also tell everybody what's happening. I've been spending some time in pandemic lockdown talking to people who are, believe it or not, older than me, who need to figure out how to use Zoom so that they can watch some of these events. And it's been really great to hear audience members say to me, I'm missing out. All this stuff is happening and I'm missing out because I don't have the technology, or I don't have the understanding. So it's thrilling to know that people want to see what's coming out of the theater that they love, or the people that they love in whatever form it comes to them.
Right, one of which is your mother, who's trapped in Sherwood Park. You taught her how to do Zoom, and we played Yahtzee on Zoom with your side of the family, figuring out how to play it on Zoom and roll dice and tilt cameras down and make a full house.
She's nearly 80, and she has seen almost 1,000 plays in the last 10 years. So I don't know how she's surviving. I really don't. However, I think Stuck in Sherwood Park is a good name for her podcast.
I mean, I think the way that she's surviving is she's making masks.
She is. She's making masks for free for members of the theater community and beyond. She gives them away for free, and she asks people to make a donation to a small theater company in exchange. So it's been a great way for her to at least give back to the theaters that she says gave so much to her over the last 10 years. She's afraid to watch a lot of the digital content because she's still on dial-up with a data stick stuck in Sherwood Park. So she's worried about using too much data on her data stick.
All those complicated tech terms.
But I think that's what I need to turn her on to now is podcasts. Although it's still something she has to download. Could somebody out there invent a play, create a play that happens over the phone, and like you call her and she gets to be part of the play over the phone and it's live? Because that doesn't take up any data. She would love that.
Okay.
Is not a bad idea, right?
That actually sounds really great. So
it's called Party Line. We're doing it. Nobody else can do it.
Let's quit this podcast. We're going to stop it here, and we're going to go make this show.
Yep.
Speaking of, I think we've given people a good idea of what they're in for. Episode zeros are always, nervous and figuring out tech and trying to figure out how to be able to look at each other face to face and have each of our mics not pick each other up.
We didn't put a studio in our house 20 years ago when we moved in. What were we thinking?
I know. Who knew podcasts would be such a huge market?
Who knew? We've got some socials to talk about, don't we, Griff? Don't we have some socials?
We do.
Can everybody out there listen to me and notice that I just said the word socials? I am so young.
All right. Well, you can find us on Facebook at The Breakfast Dish. We are also on YouTube at The Breakfast Dish. And I believe we are on Twitter as The Breakfast Dish. Yeah, at Breakfast Dish.
Dish Pod is something... The Dish Pod is something you throw in your sink when you're doing your dishes.
Wow,
like
I
a
never
laundry
know.
pod. So we don't want that Twitter handle anyway.
This is also a new phenomenon that I'm learning so much is while there are dad jokes, there are mom jokes, which is not something that I ever thought I would become privy to. But here we are, sitting in a walk-in closet.
And then I said to the guy, let go of my dog and I'll give you a piece of cheese.
That doesn't make any sense.
It's just the punchline. If you really want to know the setup,
listen to The Breakfast Dish.
Ask me and
we'll
make
tell
it
you.
up.
We'll reveal the setup to that joke in episode 37.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think we can wrap it up here. Again, we are at Breakfast Dish on Twitter, where the Facebook page is The Breakfast Dish. The song, the intro and outro has been composed by Alexander Cowman. All graphics you see about The Breakfast Dish have been made by Morgan Ermter. The Breakfast Dish has been made possible by the Rozsa Foundation, the Calgary Arts Development Authority, the Calgary Foundation, with heavy development and love from Verb Theatre and the Blue Light Breakfast Festival. No, wait, the Blue Light Festival. We were the Blue Light Breakfast series.
There will be photos of our studio on the socials.
That's right. And hopefully we'll find a way to not have to chat over Zoom all the time. We'll be releasing episodes weekly. And you can connect with us at thebreakfastdish@gmail.com.
Okay, bye.
Bye.
This has been The Breakfast Dish.